Get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Hello BYWG tribe, this is Dr. Noah. We wanted to make you aware of our never before featured Product of the Month and newly released Book of the Month for April 2018. Keep in mind, all the links, discount codes, and special offers for the product and book will be listed in the show notes in iTunes, in our weekly newsletter, and on our website at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com at the Listen Now tab. Our product of the month is Mother Dirt. Mother Dirt is a line of biome-friendly personal care products focused on restoring and maintaining the delicate balance of your skin biome. Our book of the month is Breathe, the simple, revolutionary 14-day program to improve your mental and physical health by Dr. Belisa Vranich. Both Jasmina from Mother Dirt and Dr. Belisa discussing her newest book can be heard on the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast during the month of April.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast this week. I am Dr. Wandalee McPhee, and I'm hosting this episode with my guest, Dr. Patrick Porter of BrainTap Technologies. He is an award-winning author, educator, consultant, entrepreneur, and speaker with 30 years of experience in the self-help world. And he's been working in the area of brainwave entrainment for the past 26 years. And this experience has now culminated in a new brain training platform called BrainTap. So we are here to learn more about this today. Welcome, Patrick.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, this is going to be interesting, but let's give people a chance to find out a little bit more about you. Obviously, that is the briefest summary of all of the experiences and trainings and interests that you have. So if you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, maybe why you do this and how we got here with BrainTap.
Well, one thing for the listeners to know that we're going to provide them a link to the book so they can get the full-blown experience if they want. But I started in this field. Actually, my dad was a Silva mind control instructor. Now they call it Silva Mind. And what it did was it trained us to go to alpha. So think about it like a meditation teacher. And we learned it from our church. Actually, one of the priests and one of the nuns taught us how to relax. And so my life's been kind of from the very beginning, from about 12 years old, I've been learning how to relax. And we used a machine called the GSR machine, which would measure your stress in your body and send back a feedback signal. So it was before neurofeedback, it was biofeedback. And we started using that, and then it kind of evolved into what we have now, which we call neurofeed-in, because within the strategies of light, sound, and vibration, which we have, it actually trains the brain. And when you said entrainment, that's exactly it. We're in training, or think of it like a marching band. Everybody's in the right step, in the right sequence. And my work experience has kind of taken me from developing the very first portable light and sound machine in 1986 to starting a franchise company. We ran that for about 20-something years. We sold that in 2002. We started up this newest venture around 2006, and we've been working with chiropractors pretty much, but we've kind of broadened that out now into medical groups. But we help people to implement a brain-based strategy in their practice, and we help those doctors that we work with their patients or clients to use it, because now we have a whole model. One of the things is we talk here in technology while we're even doing this podcast. It's incredible that we can do this today because, back in the 80s, people would have thought this was Star Trek or something. So we're kind of on the leading edge, if you will, of entrainment technologies, and we're always looking for new and better ways to deliver this brainwave training that helps people in so many different ways.
Well, let's dive into what BrainTap is. So as we're talking about this, people who obviously haven't maybe downloaded the book yet or haven't read any of the information on your website, haven't seen what BrainTap is, just maybe an overview of what we're talking about in layman's terms so that we can understand all at the same time.
Okay. Well, it starts first with an app. So if you have a phone or a smart device, you can download the app. And that app has encoded sound frequencies that train the brain to go from being awake to being asleep or almost asleep. You're not really asleep, but it's a training program that helps you to get out of sympathetic overload. This is the fight or flight that we find ourselves in, and puts us into that parasympathetic, the rest and relaxation zone. Now, then you can go to our headset. If people want to go that far, we have the app, then we have the headset. The headset uses lights in the visors. So for people that haven't seen it, it might be like describing atmosphere to a fish. But when they see it, they'll understand there's a visor you wear. It's almost like virtual reality, but the lights are in sequence with the sounds in the ears, and it balances the brain and guides the person from being awake to a state near sleep, very much like meditation or relaxation techniques. But the algorithm that we have between the light and sound does that. And we have lights in the ears. There's actually 7 different technologies, but we don't have to go into all of those that are in the headset. But the lights in the ears actually are instructing the nervous system and brain through a frequency to turn off the high stress mode that the body's under, because most people are under chronic low-level stress, and turn on that rest and relaxation mode. And we discovered that actually working with autistic kids and how they would respond, because they can't take verbal suggestion. So we had to find a way to mechanically instruct the body to do that. So we use it with everyone now because it gets a great result. And at the end, a 20-minute session feels the equivalent of 3 to 4 hours of sleep.
Interesting. Now, I know in exploring, through the app and some of the different programs that you have in there, there's a massive amount of stuff in there, and I don't mean stuff in a bad way, just different programs, different things that people can access for different particular challenges. And it is sort of a combination, just to help describe it for people, of almost a music type background plus sometimes your voice, sometimes not. There's quite a lot going on in there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we say it's a matrix of different activities. The brain loves patterns. So as we expose the brain to this light, sound, and vibration, we're using light actually to help the brain. There's a few things that the light does besides just get the brain into altered states like alpha and theta. It also brings in blood flow, circulation, vasodilation, nitric oxide to the brain. And for those that know what that is, that we're bringing healing to the brain, because if there's more blood flow and circulation, that means more nutrients can get there. It frees up the lymphatic system to detox. And we can talk maybe a little bit later about how the brain needs that detox, that level 4 sleep that needs to happen. So we're training the brain through all of these different training models, if you will. And when you put it all together, it's kind of like listening to a symphony instead of just a one-man band. Yeah. So we want the brain to kind of follow it along.
Excellent. So one thing we talk a lot about on this program is stress. In our belief that epigenetics are really where health is at, and that we have such an influence over where our health goes, and the decisions and the actions that we take are really what's going to determine where we are in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. Physically, mentally, chemically, stress is an underlying component to that in all of those areas. And it seems like BrainTap sort of targets that stress response as well. So how does stress impact on a person's health in your model?
Well, let's say that somebody knows they're unhealthy, so they go buy vitamins. And maybe it's even the best vitamins on earth. If their body is in a high state of stress, that means that they're in fight or flight. There's not going to be any blood flow circulation in the digestive tract. So they can be taking the best vitamins on earth, but they're just going to eliminate most of them, because the body and the mind are saying, hey, we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, even though it might just be being in Monday morning traffic. Or it could be that there's a test to take, or whatever the stressor is, the body responds the same way, because even though our culture has evolved into this 21st century experience that we're having, our bodies are still hunters and gatherers. So we have these responses we've not been conditioned. And on the other hand, when you're talking about epigenetics, we know that now with all the research out there that meditation relaxation techniques have been keyed into over 2,300 genetic markers. So when you start to de-stress and you can literally change your history, and you can, or change your future, if you will, by changing your history, because your parents don't dictate who you are anymore. They know that. And so when you're relaxing, they now know your thoughts turn the genetics on or off. So if you're stressed out and you're thinking unhealthy thoughts, you're turning on the world's greatest pharmacy to destroy you. Your brain can create 30,000 different neurochemicals. So if you're thinking stressed out, nervous, anxious thoughts, your brain literally is creating the chemical component of that. And you can think of that chemical component as the emotions. And the emotions are the magnetic quality that draws to us experiences, because emotion drives behavior. So if we don't change that behavior and those emotions, what happens is we keep manifesting more stress in our lives. So with the brain tapping system, whether you use the app or you're using the headset, you're going to start to change first your thoughts. We always tell people, congratulations, your best thinking brought you here. But typically your best thinking isn't going to help you out of here. We need to upgrade. Just like if we were using computers that had Windows 95 on it, we'd probably have a problem in today's society, because that's old. That's an old operating system. So most of us are still operating with an old, outdated operating system. We are on the go, go, go. America, we want it fast, free. We want a limo to pick us up to get our reward. But the reality is that sometimes we need not only uptime, but we need downtime. When we work at BrainTap with like elite athletes, for instance, one of the things we have to teach them is, yeah, your training is great, but you have no downtime recovery time. And you might not be an Olympic athlete or a pro football player or basketball player or tennis player, but your life is still, you're performing every day. And if you don't have that downtime, your body has no time to rest and recover and reboot. I mean, we're the only animal that doesn't sleep more than 18 hours a day. You know, before we had lights, of course, we slept about 12 hours a day. So now we're really sleep deprived as a world, because the light bulb has helped us to do more things, but we're not getting the rest and recovery we need. So BrainTap kind of fits in. I always say if there's a technology problem, there's got to be a technology solution. And so we're the technology solution.
Well, when we talk to people about stress, you know, I do talk about the being chased by lions, and sometimes we get so much into that looking for the lion that it's a bug in the grass, and our body reacts like it's a lion, because we're programmed so much to respond with such a sharp trigger to those things. Our gas pedal is just floored all the time. So it does become really difficult for people to turn that off. And they actually, I think in some cases, have forgotten or never learned how to do that. So, you know, maintaining that parasympathetic state, that rest, that relaxation, that repair, taking your car and checking it into the garage and letting it be, you know, rebooted and rested is really important. So that's something that you've developed through the BrainTap is a way for people to access that state.
That's true. The one example I give to people is if you've ever been in an elevator and you start to hear some music and it sounds familiar, but then pretty soon the words start coming in. When they took your favorite music from the 70s and turned it into Muzak, you know, your brain, all your thoughts are like beads on a string. So remember, your brain loves patterns. So in life, it's always looking for patterns. We have a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And what it does, it's always on guard, even when we're not consciously aware of it. Like you said, the bug in the grass. It's always scanning our environment. Is this safe? Is there something odd and unusual? Am I okay? Am I in danger? And as soon as it says, okay, we're safe here, then now the parasympathetic kind of kicks in, we can relax. But if we're in an odd environment, or if we've triggered or conditioned ourselves like a PTSD person coming back from war, they have to stay on ready alert. But they've so conditioned their brain that they've formatted their thinking so that everything's a danger. They hear a loud noise. Oh, it's like their brain says, that's like the bomb I heard in Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam or wherever. And it starts, those beads on a string pull in all those experiences. So part of what we need to do and what we've discovered through brain tapping is that we have to create what's called pattern interrupts. You know, and we're all used to having interrupts in our day that are negative, but we're not used to having interrupts that are positive. So we need to put those in there. And what I mean by negative is I live on the coast here, the East Coast in North Carolina. I might be having a great time. I see a storm roll in, and if I'm watching television, an alert comes on and says, beep, 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 we interrupt this show to tell you about hurricane whatever. And if I believe them, which we've kind of been conditioned to believe they're never going to hit, that's what the problem is. But if we believe them, then I'm going to stop everything. That show is not important to me anymore. I'm going to go take care of myself. Well, we need to do that with our health. When we get stressed out or we're eating poorly or we're not exercising or whatever is the issue that's causing our health to decline, we kind of follow the thoughts trauma toxin model. And if they need to interrupt that pattern and say, hey, what can I do differently? What's something easy? You can't always sit down and do a brain tapping session, obviously, because it can take as little as 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. But you can start to change your thoughts about that experience. And those thoughts change, as you're saying, which we know now, it's changing your experience to it biologically through your epigenetics, or beyond your genetics. You're going to change the way your body responds to that experience.
Absolutely. Now, my experience, I'm a chiropractor by day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Obviously people when they come in are conditioned to ignore their health. They have probably spent years, if not decades, ignoring pain or ignoring dysfunction or just thinking that this was sort of a normal piece of aging or a normal part of life and have actually forgotten in a lot of cases really how it feels to be healthy. So brain tapping, probably the same way. They've lost that concept of healthy attitude and hope and positive expectation. We have such a negative world surrounded by that negative news and that sort of looking for the worst case scenario in so many places. So
Yes, yeah, I think you're exactly right there.
yeah, it's kind of a crazy world. So brain tapping, how long, if someone was to take your 15-day trial that we're going to include in this, they're going to go to the app, they're going to download that, they're going to log in, and they're worried about stress right now. They know they're overloaded. They are starting to feel the effects of that, or they suspect that the effects of that are in there, even if they can't feel it yet. How long would they have to work with this kind of program to feel the effect?
Well, 95% of the people that listen to the very first session are going to feel a physiological shift. The other 5 to 10%, I guess I should say, they're going to have to do 2 or 3 sessions. It's just like any learned behavior. Some people don't feel comfortable when they're not uncomfortable. Like you're saying, I mean, they're so used to it that as soon as we start to lower their sympathetic response, they go the other way.
Right.
It's like they start to get anxious because they go, what is this feeling? This is different. This is new. So it takes some conditioning. But the nice thing is the algorithms within the sound, even if they're just using the app, that algorithm is going to keep them calm in that frequency response that we have. To give an example, if you and I were to go to a mountaintop and there was no civilization around, we'd just sit down at the tree line in Colorado, let's say, and we're just going to have a chat, our body is going to naturally follow the frequency of that space. And the frequency at a mountaintop is 7.8 hertz frequency. That happens to be delta. So the body, as a biofeedback mechanism, would evaluate its environment. We're going to basically create the environment that they're near the ocean or near a mountaintop in the body, because we're using the brain to do this, and the brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. We can go ahead and create synthetically what they need, and then they transport themselves. It's like a good movie. You're not really in the movie, but sometimes you might catch yourself getting so involved with it, you start getting emotionally attached to a character or to a scene. We want them to do it in a positive way here and basically take a mental vacation away from themselves for a while.
Mm-hmm. So who is this designed for? Who benefits the most from the technology that you've developed and that you use with BrainTap?
Okay. First off, Richard Bandler, who's the founder of NLP and a partner with me in some programs, he said anybody with a brain. But that just going to go. If you don't have stress, then you probably don't need to do anything with it. But I think what works best is, depending on the state specific, but if somebody finds that their problems exacerbate or get worse when they get stressed, then this is a perfect vehicle to retrain that experience. For instance, I'll just give you a simple example. If somebody bites their nails, but they only bite their nails when they're stressed, then brain tapping could probably help them resolve that issue, because the trigger is the stress, which causes a cascade of different emotions, which triggers behavior. So we can help them with that.
Gotcha. So maybe someone who is trying to quit smoking. I'm just thinking of
Yes.
clients that I deal with. You know, they want to quit smoking. They know they should quit smoking. They know it's not healthy for them. But when they're stressed, that is the thing that they reach for. Is this maybe something they could use?
Oh yeah. Actually, that's how I started my career, was stop smoking clinics. But if the listener's not driving, if they just put their hands together and put a thumb on top, and whether their right thumb or left thumb's on top, if they just switch that over and put their other thumb on top and get an idea what that feels like, that's probably uncomfortable for the listener, like it is for, 99% of the people in seminars. And the reason we do that little exercise is to say, that's only your thumb making a change. When you take away cigarettes from somebody who, quote, believes themselves to be a smoker, the reality is no one's a smoker. There's no smoke-filled incubators and there's no umbilical cords hooked to cigarettes. But people believe they're a smoker, and the law of mind is a law of belief. So if they believe it, it's so. So what we do with the BrainTap is, again, we're going to do that pattern interrupt. We're going to interrupt that previously programmed station that says, hey, I've got this problem. When they did a feature on us in People magazine in 2006, we were featured because we had submitted quite a few people that had lost their weight and kept it off for 5 years. They actually contacted us and said, do you have anyone who's lost half their weight and kept it off for 5 years? So my wife, who was in charge of documenting that, and the marketing department sent them the materials, and they were so surprised. But the reason is, once you change your mind, like with weight loss, somebody with an overweight mind, it doesn't matter what you do physically. The mind is going to win. It doesn't take a day off. So, but if we create a thin mind or a healthy mind, then that healthy thin mind is going to then generate the emotions and the behaviors that will create the outcome that they want. So we do a lot with behavior modification. We have actually, and education, like for instance, you're a chiropractor. So we have a whole neurologically based chiropractic program. And the whole thing is about educating the patient, because they don't understand that 70% of the nervous system's in the brain, 30% in the rest of the body. And if you get the brain and the body working together, you get this powerful change that's happening in the body, so that through neuroplasticity, we can create the statement actually is those neurons that wire together, fire together. So we start to get the body wiring and firing around the concept of health and harmony and vitality. So if somebody is finding that it's uncomfortable to make the change, then that's where something like the BrainTap really will help them out.
Well, and that is, I think, probably sums up all of these chronic life states, whether you're trying to change a particular habit or weight loss or chronic pain or chronic pain behaviors. It becomes such an identity for people that it's really difficult sometimes to reprogram that from the inside. You may have lost hope about this being better, or you may not be sure who you are if you don't have this illness or this disease or this weight or this smoke, whatever that is. It is a real challenge for people to get out of the box they've put themselves in.
Yes, that's exactly true. They start to identify so fully in the behavior. The number one law of psychology states you can't be a behavior, but people go around affirming that all the time. They'll say, I'm overweight, or I'm a smoker, I'm a bad golfer, I have autism, or whatever the problem is. Now, autism could be something physical too, but a lot of times it's just the lack of alpha brainwave activity, and we can help fix that. So as the brain and body works together and gets, just like chiropractic, we believe that once we get rid of the interferences, innate intelligence can take over and do the work. We just create the space, if you will, for the intelligence of the body to go to work and do what it's designed to do, heal and recover what's happening in the body.
Perfect. So we're almost at the end of our time. We have a few minutes left. Is there any one thought or technique or thing that our listeners could do or access right now that could get them moving towards better health?
Well, I think the two things you've mentioned, they can download the book, Thrive and Overdrive, and start learning a little bit more about how to take control of stress. They can sign up for the free 15 days on the BrainTap Pro app and start experimenting with that. And then the next thing they can do is just realize the truth is that you are not a victim of your past. Regardless of what happened to you yesterday, today is new. It's different. There's been no day like today. If you choose to carry your past with you, we call that the baggage, right? If you choose to carry the baggage with you, I believe you should be light. You know, bad things are going to happen to good people. It's just you don't want to tell everybody about it and start reaffirming it. You know, learn from what's happened to you, move forward, and know that life is always better when you take positive, direct action towards your goals. So that's what I would encourage them to do.
Absolutely. And that is really the message of the science of epigenetics is we are in control. You know, over 90% of how we express health and life is within our own control, which scares the daylights out of some people because it's much easier to use the excuse of, well, I inherited that from my parents, or this happened to me when I was whatever. And it's definitely a big step in responsibility to really embrace and understand the power that epigenetics has, whether it's chemically, physically, emotionally, or all three. So this has been a really enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
So once again, everyone, there's 2 free gifts, and those are in the show notes as a link. There's a free ebook by Dr. Porter, Thrive and Overdrive, and a free 15-day trial link to the BrainTap Pro app. So thank you very much for offering that to our listeners. It's always nice to have something that everyone can access no matter where they are in the world right now. We have listeners in over 115 countries, just about 1 million of you listening in. So thanks for embracing what we're trying to do here and for sharing this with others. And thank you, Patrick, for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was very enjoyable. And now that I'm part of your podcast, I'll be one of those million listening in the future.
Wonderful. So thanks to everyone for joining us again this week on Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as I've enjoyed taking the time to chat today. And we have, as always, an invitation to please share this with someone that you know that you think could benefit from the information today. There's always people that pop into our head as we're listening to these things and think, oh, my friend, my cousin, my family, my coworker would really love to hear about this. So by all means, send the link, share it with others. That's how we grow health worldwide. So we appreciate you sharing our passion. We appreciate you joining us this week, and we look forward to talking again next week. Thank you.
One, two, three, four, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling